All right, so I want to welcome everyone to our first El Dorado Hills Community Council meeting of the new year, 2021. So this is our January 4th meeting, and we have a number of different things on the agenda this afternoon that are a little different, but to start out with, we do not have a guest speaker, so this meeting should proceed much more expeditiously than it would obviously if we had a guest speaker. So if we need additional time to discuss any one subject, we can certainly take a little bit of additional time. And I think when CETA starts talking about the COVID situation and where we are with vaccines and some of those, that may be one of those areas where we want to take some additional time, in particular to help our very aged seniors, those 75 and over, understand where they stand in that priority listing. And then also the 65 to 75 are the next sequence that have been at least temporarily scheduled. It looks like John's joining us, so that's all good. So with that as the opener, let's do our roll call. So if we'd ask each one of our leadership team members to go ahead and introduce themselves. So John, are you ready to go? Not yet. Okay, Sita, why don't you go ahead and start?
Sure. Hi there. My name is Sita Burgess, and I'm a registered nurse, live here in El Dorado Hills. I'm volunteering to be the Healthy Communities Liaison for Supervisor Heidel and District 1. And I'm reporting about currently right now, COVID, everything COVID and vaccines. I'm working with public health and going to a lot of meetings at state level as well. So I'm looking forward to talking to everybody.
Very good. So Richard, why don't you go next?
Okay, Richard Ross, Dick Ross. I am representing the area of good governance. It relates to the how, the why, and explanations as to how things are happening or should be happening in state or county government.
Very good. So Chief Lilly, why don't you go ahead?
Yes, hello everybody. My name is Michael Lilienthal. I'm a Deputy Chief, El Dorado Hills Fire Department, and I chair the Public Safety Committee. My job is to somewhat just try and network the various public safety agencies together as we address different issues that are brought before this group that relate to public safety.
Very good, thank you. And Glenn, go ahead. You're muted, Glenn. Can you hear it? Oh, there you go.
Yes, sorry about that. Hi, everybody. Happy New Year. Glenn Krakow, Community and Economic Development. Sadly, we have not met in almost a year, so we've been a little limited in our impact for the county. There have been some discussions. We're trying to meet, and hopefully we will start meeting very soon with this new year and a few new members of the committee coming from some new supervisors. But there are definitely things that I feel our committee can do to help the community, especially within the stresses that we've been seeing from COVID-19. And there are still things going on behind the scenes that we do, even though we may not be actively meeting.
Very good. Thank you, Glenn. John Davies, APAC.
Good evening. I'm John Davey. I'm the chair of the El Dorado Hills Area Planning Advisory Committee. We're a resident committee of volunteers that review and provide feedback on proposed development products in El Dorado Hills to applicants, the planning staff, planning commission, and the board of supervisors.
Thank you. I also mentioned that Tim White is a vice chair of APAC, and he's also on our El Dorado Hills County Water District, i.e. Fire Department Board of Directors. So that's his association. Cindy, what your role is?
Hello, I'm Cindy Munn. I'm Supervisor Heidel's assistant, and I do the community information and outreach for the Community Council.
Thank you. And John Vania, please.
Yeah, I'm the District 1 Planning Commissioner and also heads up the kind of the infrastructure aspect for the Community Council.
Very good, thank you. And so we also want to acknowledge anyone who's a volunteer for the District 1 committees or commissions who may be present with us this evening. It's kind of screening down through the list of attendees. Tita, are you there? Tita Bladen, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Tita Bladen, El Dorado County Commission on Aging.
Thank you, appreciate that. So Cindy, are you seeing anyone else?
I'm looking. I don't think so.
Okay, I do not see anyone else who's on a committee or commission either. So since they haven't somehow flagged themselves, we'll go ahead and.
Oh yeah, John Rassler.
Okay, we can certainly have John. Yeah, John, you there?
Yes.
John, you're muted. Oh, there you
I'm
go.
unmuted, but not nuded.
Okay. Tell us what your role has been as a volunteer.
We need some levity at this time.
You're right.
Yes, I am the ombudsman from El Dorado County, and I visit, well, I not visit, but I am in touch with all the facilities from Ponte Palmero all the way down to the county line at Folsom. And I do want to thank CETA. CETA's been be in contact with the folks at Four Seasons and also at Heritage in regard to getting us on the radar for the COVID vaccine, especially being that we have so many people who will have their health is compromised who live in the Four Seasons and in Heritage. So CETA, I thank you for your contribution so far. Thank you.
Welcome. Very good. Also mention that John is APAC vice chair, I think, still with the recent appointment office. So we have a number of APAC representatives. I just want to make sure that was put in the mix as well. So with that, I'm going to move on to item 2, adoption of the regular meeting agenda. Does anyone on the leadership team have any proposed changes? Okay, seeing none, we'll accept the agenda as proposed, rather. Public comment. This is the portion of the meeting we would open it up for anyone from the public who would like to make a comment, express a concern, ask a question for an item that is not currently agendized for tonight's meeting. So if you have another related item you'd like to discuss, this would be the appropriate time to raise that question. We'll start with the leadership team. So John Davey, and then we'll turn it over to public inputs.
Sure, and I didn't want to jump in line, but just briefly, a lot of talk in the community lately regarding the El Dorado Hills monument signs along Highway 50.
Yep.
Rolling Hills is control of the sign on the south side of the highway. That's a very small special district. They are challenged with funding. They've had a spate of vandalism there. It's spray painted again. There's some concern about the structure of the sign as well, as trespassers have been climbing on it and rocks are now falling off of it. Back in the late summer, I had some outreach with the CSD, and we were looking to explore sort of the history of both those signs. It's a very hard thing to discover any new information about anything that's documented. I know this El Dorado Hills CSD was attempting to reach out to the Rolling Hills CSD, and Rolling Hills in their meeting minutes from November mentioned that they weren't receiving a lot of response from either the Chamber of Commerce or a significant response from the El Dorado Hills CSD. The sign on the north side of the highways on land owned by Parker Development. So, but there's a lot of residents asking me, hey, what can we do for that sign? And at this point, it looks like it's going to have to be a volunteer effort. Rolling Hills is probably not prepared to adequately protect that sign or preserve it, at least the one they own. In terms of, a lot of people say, well, they have insurance. Well, they're a very small district. And you use insurance once, in the insurance industry myself for since 1998, use it once or twice, you don't have it very much longer, you pay a lot more for it. So they had suggested internally in their meetings that they would explore maybe parcelizing that little piece of land and deeding it to the El Dorado Hills CSD, but it falls outside their boundaries. So wanted to just bring it up for everyone to recognize that it's a concern. Community members are looking to become engaged to find a way to help preserve, protect it. If there's a way to provide a historic designation for one or both those signs, I think that might be an avenue to follow in terms of protecting those signs. They're rather iconic, much like, we talked about the golf course for a long time, but those signs have been here a long time. So I just wanted to raise that. I know that there's a small stakeholder group that's doing a Zoom meeting later this week, and I guess I'm invited to participate in that. So I just wanted to raise that awareness that people in the community are talking about it. We're not able to be together to talk about it, but a lot of people are asking questions.
Thank you for that, John. And because my office has been contacted by the Rolling Hills CSD to see if we could help facilitate something or help with the enforcement to try to deter the vandalism and things that have been going on, and it's just a real difficult site to see how you can do anything with from that perspective. So I've encouraged the CSD to see if they could work with the Rolling Hills CSD, and even to the extent when we get into LAFCO discussions to look at, does it make sense to consolidate the Rolling Hills CSD with the El Dorado Hills Community Service? Should both parties be willing to do that? Because that would bring in, you know, more resources and more of a community unity type of effort. But I'm not sure if anyone wants to really promote that. It would have to be something presented to LAFCO as a special district consolidation. That can be done. It's all defined within LAFCO law. But I don't think the commission itself would want to push that unless both parties really, you know, wanted to say, yeah, this is really the right thing for us to do at this point in time. And they had their residents supportive of that. So we'll see how that comes out.
From my discussions with the CSD, like I said, in the late summer, you know, when the concern was being raised, that they seem to be eager to find some methodology to cooperate, to be collaborative. If it comes to a point of maybe, you know, I know the chamber that hasn't been very responsive, and, you know, this is a hard time for businesses right now. So it might not even be a financial thing, but it might be a matter of promotion in terms of community participation, and then just exploring what options are available to really going forward, how we, you know, how the community can protect it as, you know, basically an asset. So I had a message in the CSD this week. I'm hoping to hear something back soon.
Okay, so my office would be happy to work with you or whomever if we can find a path that everybody's pretty much agreeable to. I want to preserve that. It's just that I don't know that we can commit county resources to try to one more maintenance effort that we're already struggling to try to take care of. We need to adopt a monument program or something. But then, you know, how far does that go? And particularly if you don't have people who have direct visibility of it, because a lot of those things happen at night, late at night, people out there with flashlights, and you know, I don't know how you do it short of video surveillance and all that, and that gets expensive even with game cameras. And then can you really get law enforcement support when it's a vandalism type of crime as opposed to a more, you know, heinous crime that they have to really spend their time on? So ongoing discussions with it. Appreciate your commenting on that and making people aware of it. So very good. Does anybody else on the leadership team have a public comment to participate or contribute at this point?
Well, in respect to the, you know, the monument sign, Supervisor Heidel, as you remember, you know, we talked about it about a year or so ago, you know, collaborating with the adjoining agencies and using the Southeast Connector opportunity to get that done. So, so I don't know, at your next board meeting, I don't know, you might want to raise that issue again, or if you need me to do anything concerning that, you kind of delegated that to me, but it's, you know, we've been kind of status quo at this point.
Yeah, and we can certainly bring that back to light. I've asked the questions a couple times. Is it time to start defining what those monument signs on Green Valley Road was one of the places we talked about, and the other one was White Rock Road, as you discussed. And this is also an entry to El Dorado Hills, but so maybe there's something there that we should consider as well. Although this is a historic sign, it's not a new sign that would be constructed consistent with the two new gateways that have been expanded or are going to be expanded, one of the two. So fits in that category. So yeah, let's go ahead and kick that around a little bit in future discussions and see how that might connect. I think, well,
if you'd like me to make a brief presentation at one of your next board meetings, I'd be happy to do that. So let me know. Okay.
Okay, very good. Any other public comment from the leadership team? All right, seeing none, is there anyone, Cindy, that you can see who has their hand raised that would like to contribute anything at this point? Looks like John Rasler does, unless it's carryover.
No, you just raised it.
Okay, John Rasler, please go ahead.
Need to unmute.
John, can you unmute?
I am unmute.
There you go. Thank you.
I'm concerned about the amount of trash that's along all of the roads on commercial property and on lots. All kinds of trash, bottles, cans, face masks. It's really depressing to see all this trash. Is there anything that the county can do to enforce commercial properties and for people who own lots, especially as I walk along White Rock Road, to clean up their property?
that's a difficult thing to try to achieve. We've tried to do that working with the CSD in certain areas, and we've tried to work with the Sheriff's Department to see if they had crews available to come down and help with that. That was kind of a non-starter. So short of, again, a group of volunteers that are willing to go out and work to try to maintain, you know, the cleanliness of those roadways, I don't know how we easily accomplish it. I know DOT doesn't have the resources to put people out. We can't even keep the ditches cleared out. So, you know, trash is a subordinate to keeping ditches clear and making sure roadways don't wash out. So it's a great idea. I don't know how we do it short of volunteers. So I'd be more than happy to discuss that. But to my knowledge, there's no resource we can readily apply to it to make that happen. There's been several other people that have expressed the same concern. And my answer is we need to get people to stop throwing away their trash. I mean, what is it that our society now encourages people evidently or allows people to throw away the trash without any kind of a consequence? But it seems to be the way it's going. So anyway.
You know, I do know years ago the folks at Four Seasons wanted to volunteer to clean up White Rock Road. And I believe we were told by the county DOT that because that would be an unsafe thing for us to do, that they wouldn't allow us to do it. So
yeah, there are programs like Adopt a Highway, Adopt a Roadway, but the requirements are pretty stringent when you have a high-speed roadway like what White Rock Road is, like Green Valley Road is. So yeah, DOT has to make sure that the safety of the people involved is always number one. And so that sometimes means you have to be out there under supervised crew, and they got to have the trucks out there. And so there is generally a commitment from DOT to support those things. It can't just be a group of volunteers go out with a pickup truck and, you know, pick up crash without somebody being concerned or taking it to that level. So
it's a liability issue, Supervisor Heidel. And so, you know, if the county authorizes, you know, people to be out there officially, it's supposed to be under an encroachment permit of some sort, and then have the appropriate insurance and so forth. So yeah, it's just unfortunately, if the county authorizes that, you know, we gotta have the liability protection and you know, that authorization to do that.
Thank you.
None of that's a good answer, John, but I don't know what to suggest at this point. So I guess we can continue to try to find a solution, but
okay, thank you.
Not obvious what it is. So thank you.
Okay, Gay has her hand. Gay has her hand up.
Okay, Gay, go ahead. Gay, I'm not hearing you. Are you there? I can't see if Gay is muted or not. It doesn't look like it.
No, it doesn't look like now.
Last call, Gay, are you there? It sounds like it won't connect. So
okay,
we can take her comments at the end if she's still available, kind of as a wrap up or something, or go back type of thing. So let's do that. Let's move on then. We have no guest speakers, I mentioned. So Supervisor Communications, and these are going to be fairly quick. From the COVID perspective, we're still in purple tier, which hasn't changed. We have hospital ICU metrics that are getting tighter and tighter. I think you've all heard about the greater Sacramento region and where we were with the shutdown. We thought we were going to be done after 3 weeks. The governor's extended us. So more to come, and CETA's got a much more detailed presentation and better answers on all that than I do, because it changes daily. That's the most difficult time. Is the thing to do is it's so volatile. It changes daily. And so once you finally think you understand some given set of criteria or something, then it all changes. So just have to stay tuned, do the best we can, and we'll try to provide information via our social media and other outlets to share with you. And I've also asked our Director of Communications at the county to try to make sure that we put out the important information that comes from the board meetings as well, because tomorrow we will have another COVID-19 discussion at the board meeting. And we need to make sure that that information is shared with people who can't attend the board meeting in some way, shape, or form. So we're working to try to improve in that area. The second thing I wanted to talk about was our Good Governance Strategic Plan update with the 2 new supervisors. That's a week from today, Monday, January the 11th. Richard had commented on that a little bit earlier. but anyone who's interested in listening in is certainly welcome to do that. And the primary emphasis is on the 2 new supervisors. We need to all make sure we have a good understanding of what good governance is all about and the proper protocols and procedures, and try to make it easier for the 2 new supervisors to navigate within the boundaries of, that are generally acceptable and not end up with some controversial item coming out of it. So that's the primary purpose of it. It's not to try to drive something new. We will talk about some possible improvements within the strategic plan and the good governance area, but I think they're not going to be that extensive. So the last thing I'll mention that wasn't on here is our swearing in ceremony. So I participated in that along with Supervisor Turnbull and Supervisor Thomas. Judge Kingsbury presided over it. It was all a Zoom meeting, so it was on Facebook, and I know some people attended and stuff, but it was, I think, encouraging that we can still get these things done despite all of the ramifications of what COVID has brought us, and having to do it remotely and show people you signed the oath of office and all those things. So we have to go through a few more steps, but we're still able to administer those oaths, and obviously the allegiance to both the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California. So all good with that. So with that, unless somebody has a question of me under Supervisor Communications, anybody from the leadership team have any questions at this point? Seeing none, anybody in the attendees list, the audience have any questions? I'm not seeing any hands.
No.
So let's go ahead and move to our leadership team progress reports. And Chief Lilly, I don't know if we have anyone else from basically our public services, public safety areas.
Officer Brown. I do see Officer Brown as well.
Okay. So let's take the sheriff's report. First of all, you said somebody, I don't see the name for the sheriff's department. Maybe I'm just missing.
Brown is CHP. Let me see, sheriff.
Do anybody from the sheriff's office is what I'm asking.
No, I don't see sheriff.
Okay, so Officer Brown, you get to go first this time. Welcome. How are you doing? Andrew, you there?
Oh, just needs that. There he is.
There we go.
Hey, all right.
How's everyone? Happy New Year.
Thank you.
So not a lot to report from us. So we just kind of have the end of year roundup of statistics and things like that. We do have a new commander that's taken the reins of the CHP office in Placerville. Our new commander is Lieutenant Rick Hatfield. After 3.5 years, I believe, our former commander, Matt Stover, has been promoted to captain, and he's running a big unit down at Valley Division. So that's a huge step up for him. And then we're really happy to have Lieutenant Hatfield here as our commander. For our maximum enforcement period for the New Year's, it was a lot longer maximum enforcement period. So the numbers do seem a little skewed from last year. Last year was only a 1-day maximum enforcement period, being that New Year's Day was on a Wednesday, New Year's Eve on a Tuesday. So across the state, there's 29 persons killed in 20 fatal collisions. We often don't see that big of a gap in fatal collisions to deaths, 20 to 29. There's a single collision down in Fresno that took 7 people's lives in one collision. So that's unfortunate. That's like I always say, for every one of these maximum enforcement periods, wear those seatbelts, drive slow, and avoid the alcohol and medications while you're driving. We can prevent probably all of these. 25 occupants were killed, or 29 occupants were killed in CHP's jurisdiction. So 12 of those were without seatbelts. That continues along the same lines every single maximum enforcement period and every single holiday, that about half aren't wearing seatbelts, and then about half of those would have likely survived if they had been wearing their seatbelts at the time of the collision. So just a reminder for anyone in the public that's listening and everyone of influence that's here on this call, seatbelts do save lives. It's a 100% provable fact. And we're going to get out there and enforce it even more. And here in El Dorado County, because it's just one of those things that you can see a direct prevention of loss of life by enforcing that and making sure people are wearing their seatbelts. But for end of the year statistics, so we're comparing 2020 to 2019. Do you understand for 2020 for us, a lot of things shut down, not for us, but for Californians, a lot of things shut down. For the Highway Patrol, things did not shut down. Things continued at a pace or even greater than they were before the shutdown. So rounding out the year, we had a 17% increase in ticket issuance from 2019. We saw in a DUI arrest, we saw a nearly 11% increase in DUI arrests from 2019 to 2020. And then also overall arrests, we saw a nearly 12% increase from 2019 to 2020. Collisions, fatal collisions went from 29 last year to 17 this year. So that's a big thing for us to hang our hats on, is that reduction in the deaths on the roadways in El Dorado County. Injury collisions also did decrease over 4%. And then property damage collisions also did decrease almost 7%. So things are looking good. Our enforcement is up. Our DUI arrests are up. And our collisions, including fatal collisions, are down. So that's ideal. We're very happy with that. I'm very happy with that. And we'd like to continue that for 2021, obviously, and see if we can reduce it back from 17 to think days that we remember where it was even lower than 17 in fatal collisions by aggressively attacking and arresting DUI drivers, writing those speeding tickets and getting out there to write those, to get the people to do what they need to do, whether it's education or a full enforcement with an arrest. Any questions from anyone that's listening for the Highway Patrol? And then any thoughts or concerns for this upcoming year, or thoughts and concerns for last year?
So leadership team first. Anybody have any comments for Officer Brown?
Yeah, Dick.
Anybody have any questions or comments for Officer Brown?
Dick, did you have a question? Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, Richard, you're still muted. There you go.
You sure?
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Yeah, how is staffing for the CHP district compared 2019 to 2020?
Oh, goodness. I'd say we're comparable to last year in the number of officers on the road. I would say it's so close it makes no difference. It's the same.
And how far under total allocated staff have you been?
I would love to answer that. I don't know the answer to that question. That would be, I'll inquire with my commander and I can get back to you.
Thank you.
Okay, any further questions from public to Officer Brown? I'm not seeing any hands raised. So thanks again, Andrew, for your presentation, sharing the statistics, and yeah, let's hope 2021 is a better year in terms of reductions of fatal accidents and people adhering a little bit more to the motor vehicle code with speeding and running stoplights and stop signs, and maybe becoming just a little bit more aware of the safety issues that how they can affect other people. If we could just make some year over year progress in that area, I'd be very happy. So hopefully some people will come to that enlightened position of understanding other people's safety issues, whether the way they behave, but we'll see. So thanks again. And with that, Chief Lilly, any updates on our fire department?
Oh, definitely. Well, good evening, everybody. It's nice to see everybody. We're in 2021, so we made it. We're happy about that. The fire department's been busy. Definitely, like everything, COVID is one of the big topics we're all dealing with. Certainly, our number of emergency response calls to COVID patients has definitely increased the workload on the crews, and it requires extra PPE and extra decontamination time after the call. But our crews are doing well. They have good equipment. They have good training. They're being taken well, care of, as much precautions as we can. And so we have great support from our chief and our board, And so we're doing well. And really, I want to compliment the county because the Emergency Operations Center is open. I'm actively participating in the vaccine planning, and everybody there has been amazing. So I really think for our county being as, we're not a huge county, we have incredible support, incredible collaboration, and it's just really impressive. So from the fire department perspective, or for the firefighters and paramedics across the county, we're rolling out the COVID vaccines this week. Yesterday, we did almost 100 firefighter paramedics with the Moderna vaccine. I got mine as well. It was fine. I haven't had any major symptoms and as far as the 100 that went yesterday, I'm not aware of, other than some sore arms, I'm not really aware of any major problems. So that was good news. Tomorrow we're going to do more, and Thursday, and by the end of the week, we expect to have 275 of the El Dorado County, from Tahoe all the way to, to here in El Dorado Hills, the firefighters vaccinated. So I'm looking forward to that. That's going well. And again, I want to extend the appreciation to the support we've had from the county, and that's for all fire departments across the area. And then even though it's wintertime, we're definitely still looking forward to this next summer. We're looking at our vacant lot programs, our defensible space programs, and getting positioned to kick those off again. Even though this time of year is quiet, that's something that we don't stop planning for. It's a year-round process. And then I was thinking, I saw Director White there, Tim White from our fire board. He's now our board president this year. So that's great to have his leadership.
Congratulations, Tim.
Thank you.
Yep, he likes to volunteer for a lot, and we're happy to have his participation. So anyways, from the fire department's perspective, that's our report. And if there's any questions, I'd happily entertain them.
Hey, Chief, on the vaccinations, are you being asked to go to the hospital to receive the vaccination as a firefighter, or are they coming to the station? How's it being administered?
So we actually have a great thing going. We've trained about 35 firefighter paramedics across the county to administer the vaccine to each other. Our hope is, and the willingness is certainly from the El Dorado Hills Fire Department, from Chief Johnson, we're willing to do more should we need to do more to help the public. So we're offering actively up our services should they be needed. There's going to be a lot of vaccines to give, and if there's a staffing shortage, we're definitely willing to be part of that solution. So we've been able to vaccinate each other, though, is a short answer to that question.
Very good. And because I've heard governor is now asking dentists to consider administering vaccinations as well, because obviously they're used to injecting needles with various kinds of treatments and that sort of thing, numbing materials. We'll see what it takes, but recognizing the numbers are way behind what they forecast in terms of the number of vaccinations, I can understand the interest of trying to get more people helping in that process, because I can only imagine what it's like if you had to go to a hospital for it. I know they're talking about the pharmacies doing it, et cetera, et cetera. And again, CETA is going to share some of that information with us, but the more qualified people that can administer the vaccine without loss of the vaccine, because there are shelf life issues with some of this. And if you don't pay attention to that, there's a huge waste, which has also been reported. So it's kind of all over the place. You have to be really diligent about what you're doing and have the right resources to get it administered and to get people coming in at the right appropriate time. So it is a logistical type of challenge. And so I appreciate all the fire department's efforts and everybody else's efforts in trying to make all that happen. But yeah.
Nope, good point. So we are definitely committed to being part of that solution, and we've expressed that.
Excellent. Okay, any comments or questions from any of the leadership team of Chief Lilly? Seeing none, anyone from the public? Cindy, I don't see hands raised.
I wanted to I see we have somebody we do have a phone-in caller listener, and if you want to join the meeting by phone, just press *9, and that'll let us know that you want to comment. Anybody listening by phone?
Excellent, thank you for that. Yeah.
John Rasslier.
Am I muted or unmuted?
You're okay. Go ahead, John.
All right. I wanted to thank the fire department for helping us with our Four Seasons toy drive. And we did receive a lot of help from you. Of course, we missed Mr. and Mrs. Claus coming this year, but we were able to donate about 200 toys and about 4 bicycles. And we really appreciate the help from the fire department to pick it up and to distribute it. So thank you, Mike. Thank you.
And thank you, John. The Four Seasons community just always, every single year, is unbelievable with their generosity for the toy drives. Really appreciate it.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Okay, having concluded that first segment, I'm going to ask Sita to go next because I know we have quite a bit to discuss with the COVID stuff, so we might as well get that out there and questions and answers, and then we'll move through the rest of the list. So over to you. And you're muted.
There we go. Okay. Hello, everyone. So as John was saying, everything is in flux and kind of changing, and updates are coming with COVID. Now that we have the vaccine coming, and pardon me, I have a little bit of a cold, so I have a little throat lozenge in my mouth right now. I put together a few talking points that I wanted to share with you guys. And most of this is around the vaccine, but a few of it's just is COVID in general. So one thing I wanted to talk about here, start with is, so the vaccines, we have two here right now. We've got the Moderna and we have the Pfizer vaccine. And our county, El Dorado County Public Health, is working with the California Department of Public Health in the administration. Now it's being done in phases. So currently the planning, logistics, the distribution is all being organized at the state level. There's recommendations by the CDC, but our local health jurisdiction, like Mike Lilienthal was saying, our public health department is doing a really great job with the logistics and how to get this out and allocate it to people. So right now, we are in phase 1A, and I'll get into that into more detail in a minute. The vaccines are approved for people who are 16 years old and older for Pfizer vaccine. The Moderna vaccine is approved for people 18 years and older. And the studies are showing, this is per the CDC, that the vaccine is safe across all ages, demographics, and most health conditions. Okay, people who have a history of COVID infection. So if you've been sick with COVID, diagnosed, whether it's just being a test, if you're either asymptomatic in the past or you were symptomatic, studies are showing that it is safe to get the vaccine. And if you're currently infected with symptoms, or if you've been tested positive recently, they do want you to defer your vaccine and to talk with your healthcare provider when it would be safe for you to receive the vaccine. Okay, most people develop, well, all of us develop what's called natural immunity. Now that's your body's natural immune response to an infection. You develop acute and active memory cell and then memory cells to fight the infection and to remember the infection for a period of time after you were infected. And what the studies are showing right now with COVID is that people are not getting reinfected or infected for approximately 90 days after the onset of symptoms. Okay, so for some people with the vaccine, if they're concerned about getting it too close to their infection, they're saying it's okay to wait those 90 days. Now, regarding the vaccine and any contraindications or precautions, if you, the current recommendations are if you've had a history of severe allergy to any vaccine component that's within the Pfizer or Moderna vaccine, that you talk to your doctor, okay? That is considered a contraindication right now. And then also there's precautions. So these are things you'd want to talk to your doctor about. If you've had a severe allergy to any subcutaneous, intramuscular, intravenous therapy, as well as any other vaccines in the past, talk to your physician, and they might want you to see an allergist, okay, prior to getting a vaccination. And right now the CDC does not consider general allergies, pet allergy, dander, food, and oral medications to be a contraindication or precaution to the vaccine. Okay, these vaccines are given in 2 doses. The Pfizer vaccine is 3 weeks or 21 days apart. It's 95% effective. And the Moderna vaccine, 2 doses at 28 days apart. And there's about a 4-day grace period there, okay? And you need to take the same vaccine for your second dose. Okay, they need to be the same. So start with Pfizer, you stay with Pfizer. You start with Moderna, you stay with Moderna. There are other vaccines in the pipeline that are being tested. England just approved a vaccine by AstraZeneca, and Johnson & Johnson is working on a single dose vaccine. Okay, so where? I broke this up into who, what, where, when. So where, now I was on the phone today with public health, our county public health, and I was on the phone yesterday with county public health. Right now they're looking at where we're going to be administering this vaccine. And currently they're going to different sites. Now there's a federal program going on for long-term care facilities, nursing facilities. That's a federal program, and pharmacies are part of that. And they're going on site to get people vaccinated. And then we're looking at the county level, using hospitals, or we can use doctor's offices, county clinics, pharmacies, things like that. And that has not been set in stone yet. And really the message they want me to get out is they're working on exactly where they're going to do that. And people will get that information when that's decided, the final decisions are made, okay? When you're going to get it. Everyone wants to know when they're going to get the vaccine. Okay, so right now we are in phase 1A. And as many of you know, that is predominantly healthcare workers, acute healthcare workers who are in the hospital, in settings that they're high risk of getting COVID and transmitting it to vulnerable people, okay? Also skilled nursing facilities, like I said, long-term, and then also first responders. Mr. Lilienthal got it. Okay, and currently there are 3 tiers in phase 1A, and we're in the middle one, okay? Now the county thinks that we're gonna get, hopefully, the hope is get through phase 1A approximately around the end of January. So we'd be looking at the next phase, which would be phase 1B, hopefully in February. Now the question is, where are the next allocations going within these phases? Now, the CDC made its recommendation, and our state is looking at that and voting on their ideas. And I'll just share a little bit about that in a very general sense with you guys. So phase 1B will be the next phase. And what we're looking at there is prioritizing our senior population. And county health reaffirmed to me twice, yesterday and today, that our seniors are going to be prioritized. So phase 1B, we're looking at 75 years old and older. And that's all people who are 75 years and older, phase 1B. And then also teachers. So education and childcare. We want to get our kids back to school. They're very aware of that, and that's a priority. Okay, and then some critical workers and emergency workers. Then the second tier within that next phase 1B would be people who are 65 to 74 years old, who are at high risk for severe COVID due to comorbidities or disabilities. And I have more information on that if people want more information on who's at high risk. Then we go into phase 1C, and that's basically 65 to 74, all remaining. So anyone over 65 years old. And then it's going to progress. Now people say, well, how am I going to know? We're going to let you know. So as soon as this is set in stone, as soon as we're ready, people will know. Mr. Lilienthal knew because he's in the phase that's getting the vaccine right now. So we're asking people to hold tight and know that we're going to get the information to you. County Health is really working on it. They're going to reach out to us. And we're going to make sure that you get the information. It could be from your doctor. We might reach out to different communities and ask them to get involved and help us in messaging. So that's a very important piece, is making sure people know when they are available, to when they can get it, how they can get it, and get it safely. So as John was saying, we're in that regional stay-at-home. It's been extended. Our ICU capacity has dipped below 7%. And as many of you know, they want it over 15, but they're really not looking at one day in time. They're looking at a 4-week projection out. Where are we going to be in 4 weeks? So then I want people to also be mindful about pre-symptomatic and asymptomatic spread. So that's when you contract COVID, but you might not show symptoms for up to what, 2 weeks? The average is 5 days, but we want people to be careful and be mindful. That's the important part about the masking, hand washing, social distancing, is we can spread this condition while we don't have symptoms. Also with the vaccine, they don't know yet with studies if you can pass it after you receive the vaccine. So you might be 95% immune, but does the vaccine live in your nose? And then can you spread that to others? And that's something that they're studying. So that's the reason why after the vaccine, they want you to continue to mask and social distance and avoid large gatherings. And then a couple of things are kind of interesting here. Masks may reduce the transmission of COVID to other people, which you know. Also, it might reduce the severity of COVID. So if someone has COVID around you and they sneeze on you, the mask will theoretically absorb some of those particles and reduce the amount of what they call viral load. And so the intensity of your symptoms, which the viral load is part of. We do not know exactly how long vaccines are effective. Okay, so that's something to keep into consideration. We're looking at that. And then a couple little tidbits, some positive parts here as what can we do to stay healthy today? So people have asked questions, you know, what can I do to really boost my immune system and to stay healthy, stay positive? There's some information out there and some studies that suggest that vitamin D supplementation might be helpful to boost your immune system. And especially for people who might be low in vitamin D. Harvard has, I linked this to my information that John's gonna put out there. Harvard has a little article about this. There's some other studies done in Europe that talk about vitamin D, how it might be protective regarding contracting and the severity of your illness if you were to get COVID. So we recommend you talk to your doctor about that. We're not giving a prescription, we're just giving you information. Also, go for a walk outside. 5 to 10 minutes is enough sunshine you need, if there's the sun out, to give you adequate vitamin D. And there's foods you can eat that are rich in vitamin D. Also, this is a message out to seniors who are delaying medical care. If you are not feeling well, if you're having chest pain, if you're having exacerbations of COPD, if there's something not right, you're not feeling good, don't delay going to the doctor. Please get the medical care you need. A lot of it's being done with telemedicine first before going to the emergency room. So that does keep you safe, but please don't delay getting health care if you need it. Also, there's the 211 line. If you have questions, you want resources, there's information on food banks, community services. Also, they are taking COVID-19 questions. They might have to get back to you and get to public health and come back. And then there's a really neat friendship line. If you're feeling a bit down, a bit depressed or isolated, this is for people over 60 years old. It's a friendship line for loneliness, depression, isolation. I've included that in my notes. They'll be available to you. Check in on your loved ones. Zoom, call, text, reach out to people. It's really important that we stay connected, even if we're using an electronic device to do it or standing between, in a window. We need to see each other, touch each other, say hi, and stay safe. And then the last thing I want to say is watch out for a little bit of the COVID fraud out there. There's some COVID fraud going on. This is showing up in telemarketing. So phone calls, text messages, don't click any links you get in emails. If it's not somebody you know, look out for anything or any person you don't know who's asking for your Medicare, your social security number. Do not give that information out, okay? People are selling them, they're using them to bill for information. There are people going door to door offering vaccines. People are offering to move you ahead of the line. None of that is an honest person. So please shut the door, hang up, and don't click on any links at all, okay? That's pretty much it. Try not to take too much time. There's just so much information. So, and I'm providing John and Cindy this a document that people can review. So it has links to different articles and things.
Very good. So we'll come out in the minutes. When we publish the minutes, those links will be in there for anyone who's attending today would like to access more information, or for anybody obviously in the public when we send it out via the social media to go ahead and access it as well. But that it'll be in the minutes that we have each and every meeting that we conduct. So that's what CETA is referring to. So with that, questions from any of our leadership team or comments? Richard.
Thank you. Zita, who will be administering the vaccines during these A1A, 1B, 1B, and 1B periods?
Well, right now 1A, so in 1A, pharmacies are working with the federal government. So they're getting allotments directly from the federal government and going on site to skilled nursing facilities, and long-term health facilities. And then who is going to be giving it to? So the next stage, so that would be like the fire department, things like that, or if you're a 75 plus, when we get to that point, that information is going to come out from public health. I asked that question. I asked about, our pharmacies going to be turned into a vaccine clinic? They are approved, for example, pharmacy technicians, so like a CVS or a Walgreens, and that's a possibility. And what they're saying right now is to try not to focus on the details today, because they don't have, they're not in phase 1B yet, I suppose. So we do know physicians and nurses and pharmacy techs it's in their licensure to do that, but they can't say to you for sure who's going to give it to you. We do know primary care doctors and things like that will have access. Is going to be clinics, but they don't know exactly the infrastructure yet today.
The question then I would also have is, since they're doing this county by county, is this going to be based upon a residence address?
That's a good question. I don't know if I can answer that right now, but I can get back to you on that. I don't want to make an assumption, because I would think that would make a lot of sense to use addresses. However, they look at clusters, so people at risk of transmitting with clustering. So there's prisons who don't necessarily have a home. I mean, they have an address at the prison, but there's homelessness. So people who don't have a home and are, they can live in different areas or in hotels. So that's something else, that's a different group, and they are at risk if they are living in close proximity with one another. So they are actually up higher in a prioritization for that reason. But I can't tell you exactly how they're locating people, other than they have specific communication flows that we're working on with situations like this, me talking to you, physicians, working to employers, going to employers to get to their employees, things like that.
Another question, since some of us have medical providers who are actually in Sacramento County, and whether we would be under an umbrella being initiated by those providers, and we have pharmacists in El Dorado County, I can see a need to be aware of your own condition. And I'm curious as to maybe Mike's experience. Mike, were you given any documentation to show which vaccine you have received?
Yes. Short answer is yes. There is a vaccine card that you're given. I'm not sure if I can show it up here, but I think the way my screen is, I can't show it, but you are, as you get the vaccine, given a card, and it says it's a vaccine card. It's white, and it says COVID-19 vaccine record, has your name, your date, and your birthday, and then which vaccine you received on what date, and some basic information there. So, and then you have to get the second dose. And so I think that's one of the keys, is you got to bring your card back and make sure that you get that taken care of, like Sita was mentioning.
And I want to mention one thing to that, Dick. That's a great question, because that's come up as a possible barrier with regards to people who might not have communication via computer, cell phone, things like that, because there is also a mobile app called vSafe that they're offering you to download into your phone, which will give you reminders, or if you have side effects or symptoms, that you can upload those symptoms or side effects. And I said, hey, not everyone has a cell phone. So one of the things I'm working with the Four Seasons and Heritage is talking about utilizing a neighborhood watch. They have block captains. And so they can go and distribute flyers and things like that to kind of keep people updated and in the loop. But all those things are being looked at, and how to remind someone if they have a mental disability or memory issues. So all these things are being discussed, like how to make sure people don't fall through the cracks.
Yeah, I'd add on with you, Sita. I mean, this whole thing is challenging with just a single shot for everyone, but then when you add a second shot with a very somewhat rigid timeline between the two shots, it really makes for a logistical challenge. And then the temperature storage of the different vaccines also makes for another hurdle to cross. And that's something we've been experiencing. And I know the hospitals, and CETA is well versed on it. The the different vaccines have different temperatures that have to be stored. So there's definitely a logistical challenge, which I think is part of the rollout challenges that are being encountered.
The timeline that Mike just mentioned, the 2 weeks or 28 days, is that a no sooner than or a no later than circumstance that could affect the validity of the vaccines, Sita?
Yeah, so I have the recommendation. There's a grace period of around 4 days. So they want you to take it so they'll give you the date that they want you to take that second dose. And from what the CDC's recommendation is, they'd like you to take it within less than or equal to like 4 days within that grace period.
Mike, is the date on your card? Do they give you that date when you get the initial vaccination?
Yes, it's on the back. It's on the back of the vaccine card.
So that's helpful, right?
As a reminder of when your second dose date is.
So it sounds like plus or minus 4 days around that specified date is what you want to try to make sure you accommodate.
Yep.
Mike, on that card, who is the they? What agency, what level of government seems to be attached to that card and that tracking?
Well, like I said, for the paramedics that gave it to each other, we did the completion of the card. It would be the vaccine administrator, whoever gives you the shot, would be responsible for this. And I think that's why they're leveraging this pharmacies, because they already have infrastructure in place to make this happen, scheduling systems, train people. But yeah, the card is going to be given to you by the people that administer the vaccine at the time of the vaccine administration.
A lot of devil in the details here.
There is, and one thing that gives me a lot of hope is some of the vaccines that are coming in the future, like the Johnson & Johnson being a single shot. To me, for the general public, that's going to be an incredible opportunity, and I sure hope to see that happen.
Okay. Thanks, Sita. Really appreciate the thoroughness. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from any of the leadership team? I'm not seeing hand raised or anything. How about from our participants? John Rasler.
I think Mike answered my question, because as you're going through these tiers for the original injection, how do you know, or where do you have to go to get the second one, so that you don't fall behind that grace period? I can see where that's going to be really, really a tricky situation. And Sita, I'd like to ask how getting just one injection, how I'm trying to find a word. How protected are you from getting only one? Let's say, for example, you can't get the second one. How protected are you?
What's the effectiveness?
Yeah.
Single vaccination when you're required to have two.
Well, what's interesting about that question, that came up at the town hall we had with Dr. Williams, our county health officer. And we know the studies are out with the 2 doses, right? 90, 94, 95%. And it's hard to know. She was suggesting, could it be a 50% or 60%? Some people might be fully vaccinated up to that 94% after the first dose. But the studies weren't designed necessarily to know exactly how immune you are after the first dose. So it's hard for them to give an exact number, because there's a lot of variables too. Your immune response, because it's trying to trigger your immune system to respond. And people have different immune responses, and the side effects tend to be a little stronger after the second dose. So it's just indication that you are mounting a bigger response.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, John. So it looks like Ed Rice. Can we enable Ed to speak? If you'd unmute your side, there you go. All right.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, you're coming through fine.
As Supervisor Heidel mentioned, things are changing daily. So I don't know if people heard Newsom's press conference today, but there's some changes in the tiers. It appears now that they've dropped the requirement for those over 65 to be included in 1B. they had to have severe reaction to COVID-19 or perhaps death. So they've dropped that completely. So what they're saying now is that, according to the governor, 1B will have 2 tiers. Tier 1, with respect to age, there's other groups in there, but with respect to age, tier 1 will be those over 75, and tier 2 within phase 1B will be anyone over 65 years of age, unrestricted. Also, there's some issue about the pace that is going within the state. California seems to rank in the lower 10% in terms of getting the vaccines out and into arms. Of the vaccines we currently have in the state available, it's either a quarter or 1/3 of those have been administered. And so the governor is pushing, or will be pushing very hard to get that out, and is looking at other ways to get it out, as Supervisor Hydal mentioned, perhaps dentists, National Guard, pharmacy techs, and anyone else that can be mustered up to do this that's licensed, as well as the fire department. He mentioned those as well. So I think there's going to be a bigger push, at least at the state level. So it's going to be up to the county to, I think, pick up the pace. And I'm not just talking about this county, all counties. Yeah. But there's issues with the storage of this. In LA County, I read, they have declined to even use the Pfizer vaccine because of the temperature management issues. And so that's going to be a concern to many counties. I don't know about this county, but there's I think a 5-day window when you defrost this and get it into arms. Yep. So there's issues there as well. So anyway, it's on YouTube. It's available. It's very informative today. So it's just those that are interested, go back and listen to what he had to say. A lot of new news. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. I appreciate that. Yeah, because like we said, it is very volatile, and so you have to just stay tuned and adjust to whatever the current information is, and yeah, just do the best with it. So there's a number of other things that have been reported. I'll just mention it, that I've heard that people are saying, I've got an email, so-and-so was a member of this office and they got a shot because, you know, they were in the office, but they're not qualified as a health provider or first responder. Why are they getting it? And my answer was, well, maybe that the actual vaccine was reaching its end of life period, its storage life. And if you don't use it with someone, it becomes waste. So I'm personally thankful if they're getting more people vaccinated, even though you don't meet the category, to avoid a waste condition, because these vaccines are difficult to produce. They take a long time. I'm sure they're costly at some level to somebody, the federal government, wherever that cost may be. But to have that kind of waste because people either don't respond or it's not administered right, I'd rather see it get used than not used and thrown into a recycling bin or whatever they do to dispose of it. I don't even think I want to talk about disposal of these things, because that's probably another sensitive area in terms of fraud and other things. People getting a hold of stuff, and yeah. So, but anyway, I haven't heard that yet, but it's just speculation on my part. So
I don't know if I'm still on, but
you are, Ed. Go ahead.
The governor also talked about the need to speed up the pace, and the question came up. I live in El Dorado County. My health provider is Kaiser in Folsom. Where do I go? There's confusion there, and I think there's going to be a lot of confusion of, do I wait for Kaiser? Do I, if I can get a county vaccine, what do I do? And the governor said they're moving fast with anyone in the past that has distributed vaccines. Large hospitals, if they have the facilities to do that. I know Kaiser has the tents set up, and I went through their tents in Folsom to get the flu vaccine. So they're set, ready to go. All they need is vaccine and the ability to move from phase 1A to phase 1B to start getting these shots out.
Thank you.
But the communication has to get out there, because there's nothing but confusion right now.
Right. And there will be more confusion because people lock into something and then the day later it changes. That's part of the difficulty of this, is you think you understand it, then the game changes. I've actually heard we're going to move beyond tiers very soon. And go to some other definition that's a dial or something. I mean, there's a lot of discussion as to where this is going to go, but that's unfortunately part of the fallout is a mass confusion once people take the time to try to understand, and then it changes and flips. So anyway, thank you, Ed, for your comments. Anyone else? I'm not seeing anyone on the attendees list that has their hand up at this point. So any go backs from anybody on the leadership team?
No, John, this is Mike. I just, one last thing, I don't want to be keep the topic going forever, but I just would leave you this. There's a great team working together at that Emergency Operations Center in charge of this project. They are following the updates as they come. They're there full time. They're an incredibly talented group of people. And I really feel like in our county, we've done a great job with getting in service and in the arms of people, let's call it, the vaccine that we've been allocated. Not 100% yet, but it's going in a great direction. So just a layer of confidence that we're lucky to be in this county. And I really think, have hope, things are heading in the right direction.
Thank you, Mike. It's always
Supervisor
good to end on a positive note.
Concerning our county and our governor, has there been any movement for the governor to allow our county and other local counties to be able to manage their, you know, our own business in our county? Or what's the current status on that?
I have not heard, I've not asked the question at the last board meeting, but at the last board meeting, we had not received a response from the governor to the letter we submitted. I suspect that hasn't changed because I would have heard something, but tomorrow will be an appropriate time to ask that again when we have the COVID discussion. So thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, thank you.
Richard.
Yeah, another question. Zita mentioned something that made me remember regarding fraud. This morning, a phone call got through my screen to prevent, you know, robocalls. This was a live person, and that she specifically asked me if I had gotten my new Medicare card yet. That was her straight line question. And I would say that right now there are all kinds of efforts going on, I think, to identify insurance-related information and get people when they may be more vulnerable because of all this stuff on the horizon to want to make sure that, you know, they're prepared and all that stuff. And how you get that kind of information out, I don't know. I wish the sheriff's people were here today because I think they have a very important role. And frankly, I'm offended by the fact that they can't find time to attend these meetings via Zoom. And I think somebody ought to communicate that to the sheriff and not the staff and the interim staff. So that just kind of says something of disrespect, I think, toward this operation. The other thing I think we need to really worry about is with so many different changes in things and the ability of social media to send something out at a particular point in time that may not be accurate to begin with or become dated, I think it's very important for the county to have a reliable source where people can go to, much like your COVID statistic numbers, where they can go and look and see what's the latest from a credible source. And I think right now, given the fluidity that's been acknowledged and emphasized by the governor today, we really do have to be prepared and do some protective things. I'm done.
And I would agree. I'll just echo that. I think a vaccination dashboard, similar to what we have with the COVID infection dashboard, would be extremely helpful for people to understand as this progresses. And I know there has been talk about something like that. But I have not seen a model or an example of it yet, but I think we will see eventually that kind of information also in that kind of a format, a dashboard type of format. Easy to read, quick information, but then you can do drill downs into local region statistics on how many people have been vaccinated. Zita, you're kind of shaking your head. I've shared that with you.
Yeah, so I do want to say who's been vaccinated. So as of the 28th of December, just so you guys know, almost 5,500, well now with the firemen, over 5,500 people have been vaccinated in El Dorado County. So 5,500. That's a good number. Now, the reason why a lot of people in phase 1B haven't heard yet about when they're going to get the vaccine is because people in phase 1A are hearing about it because they're getting the vaccine. And they were saying, public health was saying, trust us, we're going to get you that information. And it's hard to wait and it's hard to not know exactly when, but when we hit phase 1B or we know it's coming, we're gonna focus fully on phase 1B and get them the information they need, tell you where to go, how to get it. Are we coming to you? And that's something that's come up with some of the age-restricted communities. And so they are really, really focusing and working hard on it, but we are still in phase 1A. We do have a little ways to go. And some of the allocations weren't quite as hefty as we were anticipating, which is another, so we're trying to get the numbers of vaccine vials and doses up, and we're not gonna let things go to waste. So that's come up, just to touch on that real quick. Our local jurisdiction, our local public health department can make changes, can give that vaccine, as John was saying, to somebody in phase 1B now, if it might expire in 2 weeks. So they don't want to let anything expire. They don't want to let anything go to waste, and they can make adjustments as they need locally to make sure that happens.
Okay, great discussion. I think we probably ought to end it at this point because, again, it'll be different tomorrow. So stay tuned is all I can suggest, and we'll try to provide as much fluid information as we can through our social media contacts. And CETA has been very engaged with responding to emails and other things. So that's another way to get information if you have a particular question, in particular for seniors, because I know it's much more difficult for the seniors to really adjust and understand the changes that are going on. And so that's why I appreciate that level of interface with our more elderly residents of the county. And we have lots of those. The senior population is significant, as we all know. So we need to make sure they're taken care of. So with that, let's go through the rest of the progression. Economic development, Glenn, just give us a synopsis there. And you said you didn't have meetings, so not a lot going on, but.
Not a lot going on exactly, but we did have some carryover from prior to this virus starting with community choice aggregation, and I have discussed that a little bit in the past. But Don Ashton, the county CAO, put out a memo indicating that I guess we have come to the point now where Pioneer Energy and the Board of Supervisors have come to agreement to move forward. And now most of 2021 will be taken care of, meeting all of the obligations. I know they have to get approvals from the PUC. They need to work on a joint powers authority. They need a new board. So there'll be a fair amount of work to do, but our Board of Supervisors will be represented now on the Board of Pioneer Energy. Bottom line is all PG&E ratepayers will receive a reduction in their electricity rates, probably starting in 2022 for El Dorado County.
If they choose to go with the CCA, they can always opt out. So
they can opt
out.
Really
they
will be opted in, but if they do decide that they prefer to pay the rate directly to PG&E, they will always have that option.
Right. Yeah.
Couple of other things that are going on. We are hopefully going to be able to start meeting soon with 2 new supervisors. There are 2 new members of CDAC representing those districts that are being, I guess, approved tomorrow at the Board of Supervisors. And the rest of us on the committee will be, that are at least district representatives, will be renewed again for another term. And a few things that are going on. There's been some discussion that Supervisor Heidel asked me to have, and I had a little further discussion regarding our fairgrounds in Placerville. They are not doing very well because they haven't been able to put on any of their programs to generate revenue. So they have a short-term financial challenge, and there's some long-term issues too, and CDAC may hopefully be willing to take that on. So we do need to get moving again. 2021 is going to be a very interesting year for economic development in the county. There's going to be a lot of economic issues that we're going to have to pick up the pieces after dealing with this past year going into this year. It's still going to continue well into 2021, and I think community and economic development will need attention for quite a few years to come after. So we're going to commit to do that.
Thank you, Glenn. Questions of Glenn? And do we have any participants who have any questions on our economic development? I'm not seeing any hands raised, so let's move on to infrastructure. John.
Alrighty. I had a conversation with Rafael Martinez, DOT director, and with the few projects that we've had roll in or being proposed along Latrobe, south of Highway 50, I raised the concept of a potential master plan so we could coordinate, you know, for whatever developments may happen, for a master plan and a master financial plan to be proposed. So Raphael, you know, kind of grabbed onto that, and I know he's had some discussions with staff and so forth, but I'll ask Supervisor Heidel if, you know, what the next steps might be, but just wanted to be able to look at, because there's been a long-term plan to make a transportation corridor connection over to, through Sac County and Folsom over to the future, what they used to call the county line interchange, or now they call the Empire Ranch interchange. You know, if we're going to be, if there's going to be, you know, a lot more development down there, to be able to siphon off traffic instead of running them up Latrobe Road and so forth, as well as other issues, other infrastructure type issues, and you know, drainage and those kind of things and so forth. So I'll turn it over to Supervisor Heidel as to what would be the next steps concerning that. But potential 2x2 meeting with District 2 and District 1, or that might, I think that would require the full board to authorize that, or any other ideas you might have to go forward with that, Supervisor Heidel.
And the next thing that my understanding is we need to have DOT present a layout of what they think is the nominal routing for the particular improvements that we're talking about. And it's primarily essentially a beltway connection that comes around off of White Rock Road to the backside of the business park somewhere across through what's now known as Marble Valley, and then connect with Highway 50 again. So we need an approximate routing that makes sense to be proposed. And then the next step, I think, in working with DOT again, we need to say, what is the area that makes sense if we're going to put this into a MCNFP type of plan, which is similar to what we have in Missouri Flat Road? What are the boundaries of that particular area that would be affected? Will it go south of Highway 50 and north of Highway 50? And the real question to me is, will it go north of Highway 50? Because then you can tie in things like Costco and what the circulation is there, and that may make a lot of sense given the proximity to Highway 50. So we really need to try to understand what are the boundaries for this MCNFP as DOT would recommend. Then I think we have the discussions you're talking about with the public. It probably is not Supervisor Board 1, Supervisor District 1 and District 2. It's probably about with the public at an agendized venue where we can present it, socialize it, take inputs, get those back with DOT, and see if it really makes sense to try to move forward at some point in time with that kind of a plan. To me, it makes a whole lot of sense, but there may be a lot of reasons why it's too early or it's not adequately defined that would cause it to be delayed. So that's kind of what I'm anticipating as this moves forward. But the next step, in my opinion, is DOT's got to give us a defined routing, that, because I also want to share that information with Sacramento County. Part of this roadway system is going to be in Sacramento County if we do it. And we've already talked, Shiva Frenzen and I have already talked with Sue Frost, the Sacramento County Supervisor for that area, about this going back 2 years ago. So it's not new to put this routing in. What's new is the master plan and circulation, the MC, the mechanism, right? The vehicle to get it there. And once we have some approximations laid out, I want to go back and again talk to the Sacramento County Supervisor and say, hey, do you understand what our concept is here? And do you think that this makes sense for Sacramento County? And if it doesn't, what would you see changing that would make sense for Sacramento County? Is it a realignment from what we're proposing coming off of White Rock Road to some other location? You know, because we definitely need to make sure that it's a win for Sacramento County and a win for El Dorado County if we're going to do this. And the funding is the huge part, because we know it's going to take a lot of money. And that's where the MCNFP format in El Dorado County comes from. But in Sacramento County, there would have to be a different funding source for that portion of it until it comes across and connects to the county line. So that's all got to be discussed and figured out with DOT support and probably the city of Folsom and Sacramento County before we could reach some kind of an agreement as to how to facilitate the funding for it. So it becomes something similar to the Southeast Connector funding, right? Maybe it's a JPA, maybe it's something different, but that's also got to be worked out.
Well, the concern I've had originally was, you know, I can bet my bottom dollar that the traffic engineers for these individual projects will certainly come in and say, hey, our project doesn't, you know, negatively impact traffic and so forth, and we'll get that from the subsequent developments as well, and not taking more of a regional look to say, hey, how can this work best together, considering as many of these projects as we can, because this connection has been planned and talked about for many years, but quite frankly, no one's wanted to make the hard calls to get this thing done, because it would take a lot of momentum and a lot of effort to do this, because quite frankly, no one's really motivated significantly to do this.
But we're not going to be going and begging the developers with an MC&FP. The way that works in Missouri Flat, and I think you know this, is that a portion of the sales tax revenue and the property tax revenues from that area that those businesses pay that are benefiting from it are retained in that area. They don't come to the county for use as general fund monies.
Right.
They're siphoned off and they're spent specifically in infrastructure improvements, road segments, whatever, within that MC&FP boundary. So it's not like you're having to go and plead your case with the developer who doesn't want to contribute. That's not what MC&FP is all about. That's the separate development agreement, right? That would happen with any project that would be a consideration of the community benefit part.
Yeah.
So there's two different funding mechanisms involved there. There's the developer funded stuff, in my opinion. Then there's the county funded through MC&FP resources that would be tied up in that area. Another way to look at it is if that area is going to be generating a lot of sales tax revenue, for instance, shouldn't that money be retained for improvements in the area where it's generated, as opposed to going to the county general fund and being used for any number of other things? So that's why Missouri Flat Road was set up that way, based upon the history as I understand it. That's why I think it's time to consider this for El Dorado Hills, looking forward to hopefully a significant amount of economic growth and new businesses coming to El Dorado County as we get things like the electric utility rates a little bit better balanced, right? A little bit more consistent with what SMUD can offer. It's not going to be the same, but at least we're moving in the right direction. So all those things play a role when you talk about economic development, but that's the key. So,
well, one thing that normally that gets baked into the cake with these development agreements and stuff are these reimbursement agreements, and I'm not so necessarily sure those have served us well over time. And so I'm hoping the negotiating team and so forth will look very critically at that. Like you had indicated that, hey, there are things that can be targeted for those areas, for those benefits, cost benefit analysis and so forth. But with the current status of our CIP and so forth, and our TIMFI program, that and some other things really, to me, haven't served us well financially in respect to funding a lot of the CIP and so forth. So,
yeah, there's definitely a history, and I think we need to revisit, does that apply in today's world, recognizing all the costs of things and construction costs, and particularly when you're talking about asphalt and engineering, and those things are escalating at a much higher rate than most other things in our society. So that has to be given consideration. So it will be, is all I'm trying to say. So.
Okay, all right. I don't know if there's any questions for me or any other comments.
Comments for John at this point?
Yeah.
John Davey.
Make it quick, John. That's a long-standing joke we have.
My question is, the complicating factor for this would be the Sacramento County or the city of Folsom component, because if there's no great advantage for them, if it's literally at their border, it's going to be tough to get buy-in. Is there I don't know, does DOT get to consider maybe a mechanism where this is constructed entirely within the borders of El Dorado County so that we don't have to be dependent upon approval from an outside agency or entity?
We can't get there from here with the developments that have been approved and been built.
That's what I was. When you look at a map, it's tough.
Right.
No, we can't get there from there. Again, it's not been a priority. No one's really had the political will to make that happen, and it's gotten shoved further and further south, and over the years, and especially some of the developments right along the southern end of the business park are have been built in conflict with, to me, the best route available. But
right. So the Carson Crossing destination, that design and stuff really almost prevented what you're talking about. It should have been given consideration and happened that way, in my opinion, in hindsight. But we weren't involved. We weren't involved. And at some point, the decision was made, no, they weren't going to do that. So, because I know going back 25 years ago, Randy Paces, who was in DOT, the director of DOT, had a planned layout to do this. Like John said, it's been talked about for years. And at some point, it got swept off to the side and other things were done that don't really allow what you're talking about to be meaningful. So it's a tough situation. That infill has just kind of crammed it all together.
And so the second part of that question then would be, is that Marble Valley alignment would probably be the only thing that's left that's obtainable in terms of, because I'm thinking of the terms of that grade and the construction cost for a long connector versus a smaller or shorter connector, but I don't know that a shorter connector would be as effective in mitigating what, you know, the goal of this is to improve circulation. So,
well, if you consider, what's the development above Blackstone that's already approved? That's
Valley View?
East Ridge, I think it is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, up above, yes. Higher elevation.
It's part of Valley View.
East Ridge. And then with these three developments, I mean, just these three developments alone, I think is a couple thousand lots, right? So that's pretty significant. And I'm sure more is going to, you know, more developers are going to want to develop down there based on the topography, right? It's very favorable. And then, but yeah, going east of Latrobe Road, yeah, that would be the number, you know, the biggest development would be Marble Valley. Because again, East Ridge as well, that's been locked in too, because we had those conversations, but again, no one, you know, I remember working with Fred Russell at the fire department many years ago, trying to get some sort of connection through there, through Marble Valley, because they had proposed a bunch of emergency accesses and not full-time access, because we wanted to get something through there in the future. You know, we even, you know, we were kind of pushing limits, trying to use a time extension, which was really inappropriate, but we were just trying to do anything we could, Fred and I working together at the fire department when I was with staff. And yeah, it was met with a lot of resistance. So at the time.
Okay. I'm not seeing any of their hands raised. I'm not seeing any of the participants that have their hands raised. So let's move on to good governance. Richard.
Okay, I'll be quick. You've got the two new supervisors. I made a note of their names here and I can't find my note, John. They are whom?
Wendy Thomas and George Turnbow.
And their respective districts are?
3 and 2.
Yeah.
Wendy is 3 and George is 2.
Okay. The strategic planning and good governance meeting on the 11th, is that correct? Are the details for that Zoom meeting readily available online?
They are not as of yet. I'm expecting they should be out before the end of this week, obviously, but I've not seen them unless Cindy has seen something.
No, I'm looking right now.
Okay. I know that there's been conversations with the consultant. They have an agenda, but I've not seen it posted.
Well,
did you find it, Cindy?
No, I know that Kim has been talking with Babs about it, but I haven't had any of the particulars yet.
Well, the 11th is a Monday, right?
Right. It's a week from today. Yeah.
If you don't get it out before Friday, nobody's going to know about it. That's the reality check here.
Yeah.
So I would like at least to know about that. Also upcoming, I'm not exactly sure when the latest census will be done or finalized, but I believe it will have an impact upon potentially our district boundaries.
We have to redistrict, yes, every 10 years. So yes.
And I don't know if it will be in effect within the current 4 years. That's an unknown, but I don't know how quickly other censuses, plural of census, censi, I don't know, impacted the districts.
My understanding is once elections have occurred for a given district, that supervisor retains their office, even if there's redistricting that's accomplished. But when you're coming up to a new election is when the sensitivity comes out, which we've seen with previous boards at El Dorado County, where there's a lot of lobbying to change boundaries to allow different things to happen. But my understanding, and I got this from this guy that works at the state, was once a given supervisor is elected, that election is not voided by redistricting. So how you actually work that out, if you live in a different area, I don't know, but I presume if you're representing District 1 and for whatever reason, I was, for instance, the redistricting took my residents out of District 1, I would still continue to serve as a District 1 supervisor until such time as there was another election or something else that would cause me to leave office. So that's my understanding of it. But yeah, I just don't know at this point. But we do have to redistrict. And typically we rely on the surveyor's office to do that, to basically look at the change in populations by area, use the GIS system and population densities and try to determine what alternatives might be reasonable to define new boundaries. And then that, maybe there's 2 or 3 different alternatives that come out of the surveyor's office, and then the board starts that discussion from there. So.
Well, I've never been quite certain. Well, actually, I was certain when I moved here in '92 where El Dorado Hills was. I don't know now what encompasses all of El Dorado Hills and how many different districts El Dorado Hills is in. And so I'm hoping that the census, which is, I think, going to demonstrate that we have gotten more densely populated in this area than any other part of the state, will put more and more of our streets and parcels into districts 2 and 3. And hopefully that will have a better influence for what El Dorado Hills can achieve in the county system.
Yeah, your comment relative to what constitutes El Dorado Hills is a good one, because there is no El Dorado Hills defined boundary. We have zip codes. We have proposed boundaries of special districts, or we have existing boundaries of special districts. And we know in the fire district standpoint, that doesn't make sense because it includes Latrobe now, where years ago, you could say that's what El Dorado Hills is, but there is no standard definition. If some effort was to move forward with incorporation, which I understand the CSD is pursuing, that they want to do a preliminary financial analysis, what I call a fatal flaw analysis, that they will have to define boundaries of what they want to incorporate. And I assume the incorporation would either be the town of El Dorado Hills or the city of El Dorado Hills, but they could call it something else. It could be the town of Paradise too, or whatever, right? So yeah, I don't think they're limited, but most people have been talking El Dorado Hills, but that incorporation then, if it were successful, would form the boundaries of what we officially call the incorporated part of El Dorado Hills. And then you say El Dorado Hills and surrounding areas like we do with Placerville, right? So we look at the COVID numbers, we see Placerville and surrounding areas. It's not just the city of Placerville limits that determine that. So yeah, all kinds of things to consider there.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, not seeing any other comments or questions. Let's go to APAC, John.
Hey, let's. We hope to have our agenda out on Wednesday this week. We typically publish out the week prior to our meeting. Our next meeting is January 13th. It's at 7 p.m. It's virtual, like this meeting. We'll have a pretty short agenda right now. I've been talking with Dr. Bryant Hunt, who's proposing a 32,000 square foot 2-story medical office building on Saratoga Way, and he's eager to talk to the community. It's a very intriguing project, and he's he also built the surgery center that's right there as well, the ambulatory surgery center, and so he's very excited about the project, and he sees a need here in the community that for medical services that aren't being met. So we're not driving to Folsom, Roseville, Sacramento, Placerville. So I had 3 or 4 conversations with him. I'm just waiting for him to confirm that he can attend. And if he can't, then we'll just discuss the project at a high level. And this is a design review. So really, it's a project that will likely just move right along. They were talking about construction in February potentially. So I'd love to have him talk to us before the project gets started. The other item too is that we wanted to hear from, there's a resident subcommittee that John Raslier is dealing with, that he's part of, about the White Rock Road noise study report. And they have some concerns about that study, about maybe the adequacy of it, with different standards. There's federal money involved. The federal standards, when these analyses were being made, how recent are they? Are they current? Are they using current equipment, current methodologies? So we're going to hear from John and about the concerns that group south of the highway has. And then we'll probably have a few more updates on some local projects. But right now, our agenda's in flux until Wednesday, and probably Wednesday afternoon. If you're on our email list, you'll get it. I encourage everyone to attend. We're trying to get it to under 2 hours, and we've been pretty good lately, but this one should probably be about 90 minutes maybe. So hopefully we'll see everybody there.
Thank you, John. I will give you a heads up that I was contacted today about a new J6 conceptual project that will be brought forward to the Board of Supervisors in the Bass Lake area. I'm not sure.
It's in the Bass Lake Hill specific plan?
Yes.
It's like 8 residential, or?
This is more commercial.
25?
Well, it's currently zoned residential. I think the proposal is going to be to change it to either mixed use or a combination of commercial and residential. I'm not sure how it's going to flow down. I haven't seen the details, but I did provide them your contact information.
I believe I've talked to, is it Josh?
Yes, it's Josh.
Okay.
So if you've talked to him, he's bringing that back up, and he's asking for contacts at other HOAs and stuff that he needs to reach out to. And so they've gotten to the point of, basically moving forward with that at some level and considering a J6 application to present the conceptual aspect. So more to come in the Bass Lake areas, I guess, is what I can tell you.
Well, I've been here. I'm waiting for more, so we're fine.
Okay, very good. So any questions or comments about APAC? Not seeing any. So let's move on to community information outreach. Cindy.
Yay, me. The end here. Not a whole lot at this time. Of course, the daily COVID updates with that Carla Haas puts out, we put out as well, and then put a little local information with regards to El Dorado Hills residents. The couple next door posts that we put out regarding the new Bass Lake Regional Park. They had their soft opening, and they initially had the opening from 8 to 1 or 8 to 5, I believe it was, and you could fish and bike and walk. But now, starting this month, because of it's the bird migratory season, they have cut the hours down from to only 8 to 1, and you can only walk. There's not any fishing. You can't walk your dog. You can't bike. So they're just trying to be respectful of the birds in the area. And another neat one, if you were able to see it, April West with the El Dorado Hills CSD put together one of our local heroes, Wally Richardson. He talked about his Pearl Harbor experiences, and there's a really neat link on the next door. You can hear him talk. So that was just a really neat kind of feel good thing during this time to view. So, and it's still up there. And that's about it for right now.
Okay, thank you for that. So we'll move on to, first of all, is there any go backs for anybody? Anybody forgot to mention something they think is critical?
I was just going to throw in real quick, Christmas tree recycling is going on right now.
Yes.
So if you have a Boy Scout troop that have put out envelopes in your area, they're picking up on Saturday. Mm-hmm. And they ask for a small donation, and that funds Boy Scout activities. And if you don't have a troop in your area, you can take your tree to Rolling Hills Church on White Rock Road. The CSD and Waste Connections are working in concert to get those trees picked up. And if you're not doing that, Waste Connections, El Dorado Disposal will allow you to put your tree out at the curb. You got to cut it up. It's got to be, I think it's 3 feet by 18 inches. But that's the thing that we see, trees along roadways causing accidents. Heaven forbid people haven't kept them up. We don't want any fires, but that's a big deal, and it's a good event. So people be aware that's how you get rid of your tree.
Very good, and you see them in ditches too. I mean, that's the way some people dispose of, right? It's just crazy.
I saw a guy try to avoid one on Bass Lake Road and go right off the road, right through the split rail fence of our development. He was not a happy fellow at 4:30 in the morning. So
understandable. Okay, so we're moved on to council member items. Our next meeting is Monday, February 1st. This is a tentative thing, but I'm thinking that it would be helpful if county council brought us all up to speed with what the new 2021 state laws are that affect us. And there are a number of them. And a lot of them are not very palatable when you're looking at the costs associated with them and what staff time is going to be required to track them, et cetera, et cetera. So if everybody's pretty much agreeable with that, we'll just go ahead and get a confirmation and go that route. Unless somebody thinks there's an urgent speaker that's, you know, it's important that we hear the first part of February from. So not seeing any hands raised, we'll go with that. I will welcome your suggestions though on speakers into March and April and May. If anyone on the leadership team would like to suggest an individual, either a county employee or somebody from the local community that you thought would be a valuable speaker because the information they have that the community doesn't have and should understand better, certainly open and receptive to receiving those kinds of suggestions, and then we'll go ahead and get it calendared as appropriate and move on. So with your help, we'll make that a successful venture this year as it was last year. And with that, seeing no other comments, I'm going to adjourn this meeting. And we did pretty well. We beat the 6:45 or the 6:45 time frame. So that's all good. We're a little bit early, but thank you all. I appreciate your participation in the current year and look forward to seeing you either on February 1st or sometime before. So thank you,
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.